Welcome to the CodCast. I'm Chris Stevens.
And I'm Tim Miller.
Right, Tim, the Coda team's come over to Adelaide. Well, you're obviously based here. Matt and I have come over to Adelaide for government meetings and to come and visit the South Australian office.
Yes.
We've got about an hour between meetings, so we thought we'd try and film an outdoor CodCast, which is proving somewhat more difficult than I expected because we have absolutely no idea what we're doing with lighting cameras outside.
So it'll get more difficult if the Port Adelaide supporters start to arrive ready for the game, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, we might be losing these cameras any second. No offence to Port Adelaide supporters. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity for people on the CodCast to see a new background,
Yes.
a new person. So perhaps you could give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and what you do at Coda Minerals.
Sure. Well, I'm the South Australian-based operations manager. I'm based right here in South Australia. I head up our South Australian office. A huge part of my job is looking after our Elizabeth Creek project, basically. All the comings and goings that happen on site with that, as well as dealing with the government and department rather in some approval processes and the behind the scenes work too.
Yep. So you joined Coda coming on with 3 years ago now.
That's right, yeah, just
And that was
nearly 3 years.
Right in the middle of delivering a 23,000 metre diamond program for the ME Deep's IOCG, is it?
Absolutely, it was all systems go.
Yep.
At camp there, it was a fantastic buzz, and yeah, it was a great time to come on board.
Day to day at the moment, what are you doing? What's your...
So day to day, a big part of, I guess, with my role, particularly on site, is relationships.
Yep.
Whether that's relationships with the landholder, relationships with the cookera, the native title holders, or even just relationships with the department. Again, while you guys are here, we're having a meeting with the department and giving them updates and keeping in touch. So that's a big part of maintaining those relationships. Contractors as well, it's really important.
And, maybe tell us a little bit about some of the challenges of, especially when you're demobilising a drilling site, rehabilitation. What do those things look like?
Yeah, so rehabilitation is really important to us, particularly out where we are on Arkuna and that area there. To look at, you might not think there's much to see, but it is quite a delicate area, and they don't get a lot of rain, so it's really important we get those rehabilitations done properly. Having been on site for 3 years now, I think I like to think that I know the area quite well, know what needs to happen. We even experimented last year with some different plant species as to what we could help introduce and help kickstart that rehabilitation process, which has been exciting.
Right, so when you talk about introducing plant species, that's obviously helping the land and also reintroducing sort of native species.
Yeah, so
right?
we engaged with the Arid Lands Council in Port Augusta and spoke to them about some species that do well in our area. And from that we were able to get some seedlings and seed and try to process those out on site and help it along a little bit.
Okay, so that stewardship for the land is a really important piece.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely, yep, definitely.
Brilliant. Now, talking about approvals, you're obviously taking carriage with the scoping process. Now, that's got nothing to do with the scoping study. That's the government name for the approvals process. So maybe tell us a little bit about that and where you're at with that.
Sure. So a big part of where I am with that at the moment is basically the environmental impact. So what impact will we potentially have on the environment when we want to do what we want to do? So and that goes from everything to how will you turn that rock over and dig a hole, to noise, dust, community impacts, all those sorts of things too. So it's a very, very in-depth document, one step at a time, but it's super important and to make sure we get that right. And dealing with the department, they've been really open with giving us a hand and showing us what needs to happen.
Brilliant. And you haven't always worked in the industry, have you? You're certainly not new to the industry, but you've had a bit of a career before that.
Yeah, that's right. My background has always been operations. So while I haven't been in the mining / exploration industry for all that long, having a background in operations means that scheduling, dealing with people, delivering projects on time and all that is just something I've been around for a very, very long time.
Yeah. You ran large camps in the US, is that right?
Yes, yeah, ran large camps facilities for government departments over in America. So running camps and keeping food up to people and morale high is something that's really important to me and something that's very important when you're out on site and in the middle of nowhere. To be honest, we've been really, really lucky with the contractors that we've had and we've been involved with. They've been fantastic, and the mateship that comes with being out on site and everyone's away from home, and you know, but they all take it on as their own. They're just excited when they're drilling and come across a piece of chalco or a bit of bornite. They're just as excited as we are, and which is really, really great.
There aren't many better feelings than getting the core in the core tray and seeing a
absolutely
beautiful peacock blue bornite as it starts to oxidize, right?
Definitely, yep.
You've seen a fair amount of that in the IOCG, maybe not quite as much as we would have liked, but only drilled a small area to date.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an exciting time. As you said, watching that come up, and when the water hits it, and you see that colour come up, it's an exciting. Well, sometimes it depends how colourful it was. Waiting till the WA time zone kicked in, and make sure we don't call Matt too early. Or
we never mind an early call when there's bornite.
Bornite involved. No, I can imagine.
Feel free to call at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Tim, the scoping process, and again, scoping's got nothing to do with scoping studies. It's actually scoping out the way that the approvals process is run, isn't it? How do why are we doing this? I think this is a new way of doing things with the South Australian government. So what's the value of doing that? Why is the government changing that process?
Correct, it is new. I think the government have seen that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach to approvals, which is great for us. Obviously, there's different areas will require different levels of scrutiny, different tests, different studies involved to make sure those approvals go ahead. So the idea with the scoping is to identify all those different areas, and some areas will need more work, some will need less, and it means we can tick off some of those, the low-hanging fruits, some of those lower, easier to attain approvals early, and not wait till right to the very end to get everything done all at once. So overall, the idea of the scoping is to reduce the expense and the time frame that those studies are going to take.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, talking about sort of feasibility of projects and analysing projects, we see a lot in this space, especially the junior space. Drill intercepts matter, grade matters, tonnage matters. But I think the thing that often gets missed is just how difficult it can be to get projects through the approvals process. And there's certain locations, one thing I've found, and I've been through quite a few approvals processes in different jurisdictions, but my word, South Australia is just the best place I've ever encountered for this.
We're certainly pretty lucky, and especially having just had the meeting with the department and how open they are to discuss that process with us, and even allocate staff to say, if you've got any questions, let's sit down and run through it on Teams, or even come in and we'll sit over around a table over a coffee and talk about it, which is fantastic. It takes the daunting task away a little bit more, and makes it a little bit more in reach. So.
Absolutely. There's a real joy to being. It's weird because South Australia is one of the world's great copper producers, but the reality is nearly all of that copper gets produced by BHP, especially now Oz Minerals has been sort of acquired by BHP. So it's weird that we're actually quite a big fish in a small pond in some ways. We certainly have, that next major copper development focus on us, but doing that in an area where there's such knowledge and such experience is brilliant. You've kind of got the best of both worlds.
Definitely, and it's great to have the buzz around it as well. When you're talking to the department, you're talking to those people, they're excited about what we've got coming to, and they genuinely do want to hear our updates and hear what we're up to, which is really great.
I've never come across a more proactive and switched on group of people, and that's absolutely brilliant. As I said, something shareholders across the junior sector just, I think, totally misunderstand. But it doesn't matter what your grade is, your MPV is. If it isn't getting approved, you ain't getting anything out the ground.
Absolutely, it's a big part of what we're aiming to do.
Brilliant. So thanks. Really appreciate you coming on the CodCast and giving us a bit of your background, your experience. I always ask this when I interview other people, but what do you love most about working in the industry? What's the best thing?
Look, I don't want to be cheesy, but it's the people. That's a textbook answer there, maybe. But it really is. The people, especially in my role, the people that I get to meet, whether it's the traditional owners, the drillers, the offsiders, the landholders, I meet so many people, and I love having those relationships with people, and being able to call up the driller, or have their mobile numbers, or whoever it might be, the traditional owners, and talk about things that are going on. Things happen, problems come up. If you've got those relationships in place and the good communication avenues, you can pick up a phone and get it sorted quickly. So in building those is really important to me. It's probably something I like the most.
Yeah, I've always sort of jokingly said, but in your role, charm and being open and authentic is probably the biggest qualification. And what's the worst thing about working in the industry?
As a father of four, and I'd say the time away from home is probably that's the hardest part. But again, saying that, I was genuine when I was saying that mateship that surrounds people on site, and that comes from building a culture too. It's really important, and so having that on site helps that time. Everyone's away from home. Everyone's, no one really wants to be up there for the time that we are, and they want to be home, but getting through it with other people is really important, and that helps.
Okay.
That certainly helps.
I know it's tough, but I know you're clamouring to get back onto site and get back out drilling.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, I'd sooner have the high vis and boots on than be sitting behind a computer in an office. That's for sure.
Yeah, working on spreadsheets and schedules for scoping processes.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Understood, but still very appreciated and very important. So look, thanks Tim. Thanks for coming on the CodCast. Reach out to us at info@codaminerals.com if you've got any questions for Tim, and happily pass them on. And thank you again for coming on the CodCast.
Thanks for coming and visiting now sunny Adelaide.
Beautiful. It's raining this morning, but look at this. You couldn't get a better location. I really hope the video works. You can tell this is the Coda Manor. We have 3 streams of audio, just belt braces and one in case. So that's the culture around here. So hopefully I'll have something to edit on the plane on the way home.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, Tim. Thanks.